Here and Now, the program featuring the news and interests of the African American community. Here's your host, Sandra Bookman.
Coming up, she was a senior White House official and a senior advisor to President Joe Biden. A conversation with former White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. How she's using her memoir to encourage others to become politically engaged. Also ahead, viral sensation Lynae Woods on her new mission, delivering a different kind of nightly newscast. And as the Schomburg Center for Research and Black Culture turns 100, the founder's great-granddaughter on this centennial milestone. But first, remembering Charlie Rangel, the longtime congressman from Harlem, a political power broker for decades. Rangel served nearly 50 years in Congress. He died May 26. He was 94 years old. Eyewitness News reporter Kimberly Richardson has more.
In the political arena, Congressman Charles Rangel was a heavyweight. For nearly half his life, his family says tirelessly fought for everything from affordable housing to urban revitalization, fair tax policies, and equal opportunities for all Americans.
He never stopped fighting. He never stopped being part of his community.
He left the world a lot better place than when he entered it.
Born Charles Bernard Rangel on June 11, 1930, he was a proud Harlem native and from there made his mark on the country. Rangel dropped out of high school, would later serve in the Korean War, where he was awarded a Purple Heart and Bronze Star. Once back home, Rangel graduated from NYU and got his law degree from St. John's University. That set in motion his storied political career, serving 46 years in the House of Representatives. In 1971, Rangel defeated another Harlem powerhouse, Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Being a first was simply in his DNA. Rangel was a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, the first African-American member of Congress to lead the powerful Ways and Means Committee. But in 2010, he was found guilty of violating House ethics rules and was eventually censured. Even with the scandal hanging over his head, 1 month earlier, constituents stood by his side, re-electing him. Rangel was part of an elite group of Harlem politicians known as the Gang of Four: David Dinkins, Percy Sutton, and former Governor David Patterson's father.
The same issues that he addressed in those days are now being torn down in these days. And that's what I think is the only sad thing about his passing, is we could have continued to use his voice and his strength toward equal opportunity in this country.
A reputation for reaching across the aisle and getting things done. Among his colleagues, Rangel was known as one of the hardest working lawmakers.
We were in different parties, but we were good friends. He was loyal. He was a true patriot.
That relationship, something Rangel discussed with Eyewitness News anchor Bill Ritter in 2020.
We'd love the opportunity to make a contribution. And I really think, as John, the late, great John Lewis said, that we'd love to make trouble, good trouble.
Congressman Charlie Rangel served as a U.S. representative for 46 years, becoming one of the longest-serving members of Congress in history. He was a founding member of the Congressional Black Caucus, the first black chairman of the powerful House Ways and Means Committee, and the last surviving member of the influential Gang of Four, which included David Dinkins, Percy Sutton, and Basil Patterson. Known as the Lion of Lenox Avenue, Rangel was dedicated to community service, which included being a member of 100 Black Men of America, a service organization dedicated to the empowerment of African Americans. Joining us this afternoon as we remember Charles Rangel is Eric Clayette, Executive Director of 100 Black Men. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon, Mr. Clayette. I understand you guys have your national convention underway in New Orleans.
We absolutely do. We're down here in the famous New Orleans, looking forward to enjoying the good food and and actually doing some really great work on behalf of Black people in the United States.
And we so appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your schedule to talk about the late congressman. I understand you grew up on 135th Street, kind of across the street from Charles Rangel, so you've known him for quite some time. Known of him even before that, I'm sure.
Yeah, he's a legend in the neighborhood. I mean, you can't be a Harlemite and not know Charles B. Rangel, the congressman. Lived right up the street. You could see him walking the street. You'd see him at Sylvia's. Used to see him sometimes at Pan Pan. I see him sometimes getting into his car in the morning, heading to work or heading down to D.C. So yeah, he's a staple in the community, and really a wonderful human being. I have always admired Brother Rangel. I say Brother Rangel, he's a member of 100 Black Men. He actually was not a founder. We were founded in 1963, but I think he became a member in 1964. So he may as well have been considered one of the early, adopters of the work that we do with 100 Black Men of New York in particular.
Ask you, as a young Black man, influential in your own right these days, what it meant as a young man in that community to see a man like Charlie Rangel, living among you, walking among you. How much did that mean to you, and how much did that influence and encourage you to follow your own dreams?
So I think we modeled the behavior that we see every day. So having a living legend live in my neighborhood meant a lot. I mean, as it turns out, he became an alpha. I'm an alpha. He was an early member of 100 Black Men. I'm a member of 100 Black Men. I'd say that he's been influential. I mean, when I was in college, I studied political science. There are a lot of places that I think that, Mr. Rangel was influential. And as I said, he was an icon for Black young men like myself and Black people in the community to say, if he's that thing, I can be that thing too. So as I said, young people model the behavior that they see every day, and having, the line of Lenox Avenue right up the street was a really, really important icon for me, and certainly, all the young men and women that I grew up with in Harlem.
Now, you worked alongside him in the empowerment zone, right?
Yeah, he was. I'm sorry, go ahead. He was chairman of the empowerment zone. In fact, I think it was his legislation with Bill Clinton, I think back in '94, that actually opened up. And I think I was in the second iteration of board members to serve on the empowerment zone. And I remember he was always very, very clear about making sure that Harlem would have a corridor for business opportunities so we could grow, particularly 125th Street, as an opportunity to bring business to Harlem and create jobs and opportunity for people in the neighborhood. In those days, I was an advocate for youth. I'm still an advocate for youth. And I remember one time we had a conversation, and I told Brother Rangel, I said, sir, you have to have opportunities for young people to be involved in the work that we do. Because if you take out the opportunity for young people, they won't know how to manage these businesses when they come along. He said, Eric, I'm going to allow it this time. But, this is, and essentially he was like, I'm going to allow you the opportunity to put forward this youth opportunity in the business corridor. But, essentially we want to make sure that business owners are getting the lion's share of the opportunities on 125th Street. So he's a great man, great leader, thoughtful, and I deeply appreciate all that he did for the empowerment zone.
And really what the empowerment zone in turn meant to Harlem, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's still giving to Harlem. I mean, I think the original dollar amount was close to $600 million to sort of support businesses and create jobs in the neighborhood. I mean, I know some of the restaurants and businesses that are anchored in Harlem today are, born out of the work that, Mr. Rangel did. I mean, if we're not for the dollars, the seed money that was available to kind of, seed fund some of the restaurants and big box, stores that are in Harlem, they wouldn't be here today. So, Mr. Rangel has done many, many, many things to benefit his neighborhood and, the people in his district. And we are super appreciative of the work that he's done.
Yeah, we've talked about the Empowerment Zone. He was also instrumental in efforts to get the Affordable Care Act passed. And something that people may have forgotten about, his role in the Rangel Amendment, which essentially helped end apartheid in South Africa. All of those things. If somebody asked you what you would say Charlie Rangel's legacy is, how would you answer that?
I said that he is the role model for what men ought to work towards. He is an icon that kind of shed a light on the things that you can do when you use your influence for the benefit of your community. I'd say that, he used his influence in the political arena to make sure that not only folks in his district were supported, but all over the world. And that to me is hallmark. The fact that he had a personal mission to help New Yorkers and by extension Americans and people all over the world, I think is the legacy that he leaves us. He was a giant. He was a leader. He didn't always agree with what you had to say. He was never discourteous about it. He'd let you know when he didn't agree, but he was always agreeable. Yeah. So he made it easy to work with him. I thought he was great. I think he's a great icon for our community, and we will remember him always.
And tell us about the Charles B. Rangel Scholarship that 100 Black Men sponsors.
So this year, we, the 100 Black Men of New York, had our gala in March. And, Brother Rangel was to be our member honoree. And due to his illness, he wasn't able to join us in person, but his son-in-law, Howard Houghton, gave really wonderful remarks. But it was our intention to announce at the gala that we would host a scholarship, a named scholarship for him. The 100 Black Men gives almost $100,000 a year to scholars from our community from New York City to support young folks to going on to college. And there were meant to be 2 named scholarships for Brother Rangel at our gala this year. So we were really excited about the opportunity to really acknowledge his great work, acknowledge his work in the 100. As I said, he's been around since almost the very beginning of the organization. So moving forward, we will have 2 named scholarships for Charles B. Rangel with 100 Black Men.
Eric Clayette, Executive Director, 100 Black Men, thank you so much for sitting down with us today to remember Charles Rangel. I want to send folks to your website, ohbm.org. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you for honoring our dear brother. Have a good day.
You too. We'll be right back. She made history as the first African-American and openly gay White House press secretary, and she faced the daily intense scrutiny that comes with that position longer than any other woman that has served in the role. In her memoir, Moving Forward, A Story of Hope, Hard Work, and the Promise of America, Karine Jean-Pierre tells her powerful story of how she came to be at the center of political power, from working in the Biden administration to campaigning for President Obama and Vice President Kamala Harris, and now inspiring others to become politically engaged. It's our pleasure to welcome Karine Jean-Pierre.
Oh, you said it so well. Thank you.
I practiced.
I see. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Gotta say it right. Thank you so much for
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me.
It's great to not see you standing behind that podium answering questions that I'm sure you weren't too keen on answering.
It's the job. It's the job. I always say I don't miss it. People always ask me if I miss it. I don't. I'm very happy to be on the other side of things. But it was an honor and a privilege. I mean, I represented and spoke for the President of the United States, the leader of the free world. That was not lost on me. I got to be in the West Wing every single day and standing on the shoulders of my ancestors doing it. And so I feel really special and blessed to have had that opportunity. Do I miss it? No.
Was the job harder than what you anticipated or just about what you expected it to be?
Well, I had the privilege before stepping into the role of being the principal deputy press secretary for Jen Psaki, who was Joe Biden's first White House press secretary. And so I did it for a little bit over a year. So I had a real sense and a feel of what the job was like. I had gone and done the podium and stepped in for her when she was not at the podium. And so it was good to have that experience. Obviously, everything is different once you're in the role. And so the experience was a little different, obviously. But I was lucky enough to have had a little bit of, oh, this is what it's like.
Yeah,
that's what it looks like, a little bit of the taste of it.
Why did you write this book?
So
because it's not a tell-all,
it's
which
not
seems
a tell-all.
to be the...
So just to set it, so I wrote that book moving forward in 2019. So I wrote it 6 years ago. And I wrote it because I felt it was important to have representation and for people to hear their voice in a story. And as a Black woman, a queer woman, a woman that came from an immigrant family, I didn't see those many stories. And I also was in politics, and I wanted to, young people used to ask me all the time, because I worked in the Obama administration, how did you get to where you got to? And so I wanted to also give a little bit of a template, a guide on how you can get politically involved and how you can step into your own political power. And I actually feel, while the hardcover came out in 2019, this is the paperback came out this week, I actually feel like this book is probably just as important today as it was 6 years ago, because so many folks are wondering now, in this moment, how do they get involved? How do they get engaged? What should they do? And I think it's important for folks to get involved in their community, to get involved in politics. Do not turn away, do not fall into fear, and that you have a voice. And that's what this book is all about.
What I love about your story is that there are things about it that aren't regular, but when you read the story, it could be anybody's life. That, if you're following the course but it could be growing up in any family and just really having the courage to step out on the things that you believe in, or do you have a desire? You kind of ran toward things in a lot of ways.
That's exactly right. I followed my passion.
Exactly.
And I didn't know where it was going to lead me.
And politics was not your passion. Reading this book.
No, when I first started, it wasn't, because I grew up, and I started saying this, I grew up in an immigrant family. And my parents wanted me to be a doctor. So that's what I thought I was going to be. And then when I realized that wasn't my passion, understandably it was something that my parents wanted, I had to figure out
what was yours.
It was. Yes, exactly. What power, what was I going to stand in? What was going to be my power? And so that's kind of what the book talks about as well. And my career has literally did zig. And I tell young people all the time, follow your passion. And we worry, right? We worry a lot about, well, how am I going to pay the bills? How am I going to do this? Which is understandable, because many of us don't come from means, right? We don't come from a wealthy family. And so if many of us actually have to take care of the people after us or our families. So it's a scary thought. But what I want the book to represent is that you can do it. You have to have belief in yourself. And you have to take those chances and take those leaps. Another thing about the book, that it was written in 2019, but what we did do is we have a new cover, which I'm really excited about. The hardcover, my hair is much shorter, so we were like, okay, people are going to be like, who's that person? So
you're definitely a Black woman talking about your hair.
Yeah, my hair, right? And then, but it does have an afterword in it, the paperback version, where it does talk about the last 6 years and giving a little bit of flavor of me ascending to the White House podium. And so it does give a little bit of behind the scenes about that.
And I do want to remind people that you are one of ours. You live briefly in Queens, and as my producer was explaining to me, because I was trying to give you the Queen, and she said, no, it's Long Island. And she's saying in my ear, Strong Island.
Strong Island, that's right.
Yeah, your family moved here from the Caribbean.
That's right.
And they Queens first,
Yes.
and then you moved out to Long Island.
Nassau County, Hempstead, went to middle school, high school. I'm a New Yorker through and through.
Yes, you definitely are.
I am a New Yorker through and through. That is my heart. That's how my heart beats, New York. And I think if you read the book, you'll feel a little bit of that New York attitude, and that's how I move around in this world.
And that's exactly.
Yeah.
That attitude helped you to move and ascend in this world.
Yeah.
The state of politics today, it is almost no matter what side you fall on, people aren't happy with the way things are going.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that the message you have about the need for young people to get politically engaged is that much more important.
I really do. I think that, I'm always very impressed by our young people. And I think you have young people who protest and they care about issues and they put their heart out, which is beautiful to see. I think it's important. That's why many of us live in this country, because democracy and freedom and having the right to express ourselves. You see it during the civil rights movement. I mean, this is our history, is to speak out loud. We see it from our ancestors. We see it from people before us. And I think it's important to continue that. There's a whole nother part too, is that if you want to change the system, I think it's also important to run for office or get involved,
be part of the system.
Be part of the system, be part of writing the legislation, pushing policy. That's how you change things. And that's what I learned. That's part of my journey. Because even though I didn't become a doctor, when I came out of college, I wanted to make change. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make change that helped people who looked like my family, right? Who had to deal with the issues that they had to deal with coming through, like, as I was growing up, right? Mm-hmm. Coming through that time. And so there is power in it, and not to be fearful of it and not to run away from it. You could make a change, and there's power in it. And so that's what I want young people, and anybody at any age, really, to really learn and understand, or just be open to it. Mm-hmm. Be open to it.
I mean, I think that there are, what you will hear younger people say today in a lot of ways is the system is broken. Mm-hmm. And I hear you saying there are parts of it that aren't working. Yeah, there are. But you have the power to fix it.
If they didn't have an opportunity to tell them there's an opportunity to fix it. Mm-hmm. There is. And I would be lying if I didn't say, there's parts of it, of the political system, that isn't working. There is, but we can get involved and try to do our best to make change.
Your take, since you were at the center of this, your take on partisan politics today, it just seems to me and many other people that it is a bunch of gotcha, and the inclination to work together is not there at all. Yeah. What do you think that says about, the country actually being able to make progress, as long as that is the situation in Washington?
It's very layered, right? You have misinformation, disinformation, you have social media, people get 24/7 information. You have to fact check everything that you read. And there is this inclination of being very much stuck in your party, in your beliefs, in your ideology, and not really looking at the other person or really hearing what's being said on the other side. But the reality too is who's sitting in the White House matters, right? What's happening at the White House matters when you have someone who is saying the press is the enemy of the state, when you have someone putting policies that hurt vulnerable people and has that rhetoric that really plays into partisanship. That's scary. That's scary. And so it does start from the top. It does start from examples. And so we, as a community, have to keep pushing back and making sure that we're being heard. Because the people in DC, when you think about Congress, you think about, the White House, those folks they're supposed to be representing us. They're supposed to be making it about the American people first, not about power, not about partisanship, and not about politics. And I think that is some of the things that have changed. And this is why I tell people, don't sit in fear. There's a lot of chaos happening. Don't sit in that fear. You have to really bring your community and speak out loud and be active in your community. Because I also truly believe they come for one, they're going to come for all of us.
Yeah, that's generally
and that's
the truth.
what we have seen. We've seen that.
Whatever it is, you're next.
You're next. So, and especially when you're othered, and especially if you're in a vulnerable community.
One of those vulnerable communities, the LGBTQ community, certainly feels like under the current administration, in many ways, they have a bullseye on them. Just your response to that and what needs to be done.
1,000%. If you are, again, othered or part of a vulnerable community, we're speaking specifically about the LGBTQ plus community, our protections are being taken away. We are no longer protected, or more of those protections that we have obviously are being taken away. So we feel vulnerable. And this is why I say we all have to come together as a community. They come for one, they're going to come for the next. And that's the way this works, right? That's the way, an idea of dictatorship, right? That's the way that works. And so we have to not forget the people who are vulnerable and can't speak for themselves. Yeah. And that has been part of this book, part of my experience, and also being at the podium, is I know not only that representation matters, seeing me and representing the communities that I represent, that made people feel seen and feel a little safer. And so that is important as well. It's like we have to make sure that we're using our platforms in a way that we're protecting everyone and speaking for everyone. And it is scary. I am worried. I am truly worried.
And you toss into that basket the DEI rollback.
The DEI rollback, right? And I read an article recently that Black women have been the ones that have lost most jobs, that have really high job loss amongst Black women since the rollback of DEI. I mean, that's the harm. And if you think about Black women, many of them are leaders in their household, in their communities. They're raising children, and some of them are doing it alone. And you're telling me now they're losing their jobs? That is a huge problem. And so, you know, we are living in a time that is, I'm very worried and I'm really scared. And that's why we have to find our political voice. We have to continue to lift up our community, go back into our community, because you don't have to do public service, right? You don't have to.
There are other ways.
There are other ways to make sure that you're part of protecting vulnerable communities, part of protecting your community, and making sure that you're not a target. And if you are, how do you find ways to stand up for yourself and stand up for your neighbors?
And also allies.
Allies,
whatever
we need
that
allies.
fight
We
is.
need allies, 1,000%.
I want to ask you about a book that recently came out, the Jake Tapper book, that raises questions about the President Biden's mental acuity. And the book has even faced some backlash in terms of why wasn't some of this reported beforehand? Just your thoughts.
So I have not read the book. I'm not planning to read the book. I know there are multiple books out there. It is not, I don't feel like it's my job to respond directly to any of the books. And I have no desire to do that. What I will say is, from the things that you just listed out that I have heard, it's not my experience. It was not my experience. I have known Joe Biden, President Biden, since 2009. This is someone that I respect deeply, that has cared about my career, that decided himself that the person who should stand at that podium behind that lectern should be me and look like me, because he understood how representation mattered and how it was important to not leave anybody behind and that to bring everyone in. That was a big deal when he said, hey, Karine, as a Black woman, queer, immigrant, I want to be part of you making history and being in that White House press briefing room. I have a lot of respect for that, a lot of respect, because remember, I was number 35. The people before me did not look like me. So that is the person that I know. The person that I know was someone, when I was called into the Oval Office, or he called me, I was always a little worried because I knew he was going to ask me something that I may not have an answer to. Who was on top of what the press was saying, who was on top of what was happening in the world, and wanted me to get clarity, or me to explain something that he saw, or have we worked on a particular story. That's the person that I know. And what I'm hearing about in these books is not the experience that I had. And I remember I saw him every single day and spoke to him every single day. It was not my experience.
Do you have a feeling about what, and this is really politically in the weeds, but you were at the center of it, what the Democrats need to do? They seem to be floundering.
Yeah.
And they don't seem to have a response.
Yeah.
For many of the things that Republican lawmakers have signed on to that are exactly opposite of what the president ran on in terms of helping the average American person.
So I will remind folks that there was Project 2025. It was very clear what was going to happen. They laid it out for us almost throughout the whole entire past year in 2024. We knew what was coming. And so we should have been ready.
The book, Moving Forward, A Story of Hope, Hard Work, and the Promise of America, you can find it wherever books are sold. We can't wait to see what you do next.
Oh, thank you. Same here. Thank you so much.
You can come back anytime.
I appreciate it. Thank you for this opportunity. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. And we'll be right back. Her unapologetic voice on social media comes through loud and clear, whether it's about politics, social justice, or culture. Viral sensation, writer, activist, and NAACP Image Award nominee Lynae Vanee is on a mission to shake up the traditional news format on her new series, The People's Brief, streaming on Revolt, a multimedia company committed to amplifying Black voices. Joining us today, social media influencer and host Lynae Vanee. So nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you as well. Thank you for having me.
What a fantastic project to be able to work on. Why is this something that really caught your attention and felt like it was a good fit for you?
Yeah, I think the team at Revolt wanted to do exactly what I wanted to do, and that was give the parking lot a bigger stage, or give me a bigger stage, rather, to do what I want to do with more time. I've been used to truncating really tough, heavy, and intricate topics into 3 to 5 minute segments to keep people's attention. But the attention is there, which is evidenced in the amount of people that come to watch every Friday. So it was an opportunity to seize the moment and really give people more of what they need to continue lifting the veil. And they didn't want to abbreviate me in any way. They really wanted to give me a megaphone, so it just made sense.
So I was going to circle back because you mentioned the parking lot.
Okay.
The parking lot pimp. I love the name.
Thank
and
you.
that's kind of really how you got your, you got your voice out there and really caught people's attention.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the parking lot pimp, because that was the precursor to this project.
Yes.
What you do there in that short period of time and why you think it resonated. You've got almost 1 million?
We're getting there. We're inching very close.
Yeah, it's like more than 800,000.
Yes.
Girl, that's 1 million.
Thank you. Well, so Parking Lot Pimpin' started because I felt like it was finally my time. I've been preparing for that sort of content all my life and just not really knowing. I got my master's in African American Studies. I've always been a super huge Black history buff. And when I left that master's program, I automatically wanted to share more. And so being that history buff in general, social studies class was always fun to me, but I know it was boring to a lot of my peers. But from all the things that I learned, all the people that I was exposed to, I understood that if I had known this information earlier, I might be even more unstoppable than I am now. But that information was only available to me behind a paywall in academia, being accepted into a premier institution to be able to learn from some of the top scholars in the field. And so I wanted to break down that paywall and offer it to people, particularly young people. So I went to go teach high school right after I got my master's because I wanted those kids to have more information about themselves and their ability and capacity to shape the decisions they would make moving into the world as functioning adults. But all that is to say, teaching did limit me in a lot of ways, especially working for public school systems. They also weren't paying very well. And, you know, 2020 was a tough year for many people, and sometimes tragedy breeds a lot of opportunity for things to change. And I saw a shift in appetite from my community to want to learn more and know more, to be equipped more and armed with more knowledge, information, vocabulary, nuance, to be able to advocate for themselves and the people around them in their community. So it just felt like, you know, my grandma always used to say, prepare for war in a time of peace. And I feel like I'd been preparing for war, and now it's time to fight. And it was just timing, great timing.
So what you essentially are become an expert at doing is using all of that knowledge you have about Black history and applying it to the current travails in society and helping young people especially understand why that history, being informed of that history, helps them meet the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. And I wonder if this new program, you know, the brief, is really going to help you do that on a bigger scale. That's your hope, right?
Yeah, that is definitely the plan. We have 45 minutes now, and we have a lot of time to do a lot of things with, but history and contextualization is always so important, because what we find out is, I'm not going to say things never change, but things look the same, and the same problems persist over time. And we're not the first people to fight these battles, and I want them to see that there are people who have created blueprints for us, and people expounding off those blueprints right now to help us keep going and moving forward and shifting.
And I think at this time when a lot of people feel like a lot of African-American history, there's an effort to just eliminate it, to wipe it off the books, to make it less important. It feels like what you're doing is really, really that much more important.
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely a form of resistance, and to know that I'm in a moment where what I'm doing is pushing against the status quo and inspiring other people to resist as well, that I'm a resource. That can be a heavy thing, but you know, I'm not doing it by myself. I have a great team behind me, and we're all, my director says every day when we come to set, all right, you guys, you ready to make history? And I don't think, you know, our names going down in history is the goal, but we really understand we have something precious to offer, and we want to protect it and do it well.
And that is the effort. So if I asked you, how is your show different from the newscast that say I do every day? What do you say?
I would say, number one, you're not going to come to the show and get my spiel of the top headlines of the week. We're going to take things that are ongoing and consistently affecting our communities. We're going to connect them back to things that might be currently going on right now, because as I said, things don't change and the same problems have been persisting over time. But you're also not just going to see me sitting at a desk. You might sometimes, but you'll also see me in the field. You also see some man on the street. We might have dinner with some special guests. We might have an expert interview. We might do a skit or a sketch. And so you have this one show that is an amalgamation of maybe Tonight with John Oliver and 60 Minutes and SNL with a whole lot of Black girl magic on top. But I've always approached things in a non-traditional way, so it only makes sense that the show would look and feel like that too.
And it sounds like it is going to be a hit.
Thank you.
Combination of informing and educating people with a little bit of commentary thrown in there.
Yeah. We call it edutainment.
Okay. So I'm going to send folks to your social media at Lynae Vanee, social media, and then youtube.com/revolt. And that's where they can find you.
Absolutely.
And
so, yes. So we air Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. on Revolt on any sort of cable network that you might have. We have a channel. You can also watch it on the Revolt app on streaming the next day at 11. But on YouTube, you can catch snippets the next day. Yeah.
I got a feeling we are going to be seeing and hearing from you soon. Again, and more. All right?
That's the hope.
Lynae Vanee, best of luck with this project.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
We'll be right back. The Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem is one of the world's leading cultural institutions. Founded by the distinguished Puerto Rican-born Black scholar and bibliophile Arturo Schomburg, it is devoted to the preservation and study of materials focused on African American and African diasporic experiences. And now the renowned public library is turning 100 and celebrating that milestone with a major new exhibition. 100, a century of collections, community, and creativity. And here to tell us more is the director of the Schomburg Library, Joy Bivens, and Arturo Schomburg's great-granddaughter, Asia Schomburg. It is so nice to have you guys here with us this afternoon.
It is lovely to be here.
It's great to be This is a big deal.
It really is.
So tell me what it is that you want this centennial exhibition to do.
Well, the Centennial exhibition is part of a larger kind of group of programs and events that we have going on all during the 100th year. The Centennial exhibition is really meant to tell the story of the Schomburg Center through the lens of the community it's in, which is Harlem, and also through these storied collections. And so the exhibition features collections across all of our divisions, which includes manuscripts, archives, and rare books, and photos and prints, art and artifacts. So we really wanted the public to be able to see things that are usually in the archives, that you have to come to the reading rooms to engage in. So while we do exhibition regularly, we really wanted this to be a special experience.
You know, that's one of the interesting things about museums, that you know, what you see when you walk in is just a fraction of what they have. It's the same thing at the Schomburg.
It's true. I mean, we're a research library, which means that for the majority of what we do, our operations is to serve academic researchers who are writing books and doing movies and making art. And so we have 11 million objects. Obviously, we can't bring them all out all at the same time, but we can give you a sense of the vastness and the richness of the collection. And then if you want to know more, because we are a public library, and if you have a library card, you can come and engage in our collections in our reading rooms.
Yeah, it is. The Schomburg is truly a special place.
It really is.
And I know that, Asia, it's just this family history, this family lore, if you will. Talk to me a little bit about your grandfather, who kind of kicked off all of this 100 years ago, to be exact.
That's right. I think, you know, Sandra, when I think about it, it's just
great-grandfather.
My great-grandfather is so, you know, I can't imagine, you know, as you mentioned, he's a Black Puerto Rican, born in Puerto Rico. He came here when he was 17 years old through Ellis Island. You know, his story is one where he sort of turned pain into triumph, right? He had a 5th grade teacher who said that, you know, he was a dark-skinned Puerto Rican. His mother was from St. Thomas. And she said, you know, the Negro has no history, like and sort of, you know, basically said that he had no value. And he spent the rest of his life really proving her wrong. And so he comes here really as a young man. Think about it, 17 years old, through Ellis Island to New York, to set out really on this journey of really proving her wrong, collecting items and things that really demonstrated Black excellence, what we would now refer to as Black excellence, collecting items, art, artifacts, books that were written by or, you know, impacted by, you know, Black folks from globally, you know, from the diaspora. So when you ask me, really just, you know, obviously it's just the bloodline. I happen to be lucky enough, right, and honored enough to sort of be born into this, but I think sort of honoring the legacy has been really just a labor of love for me. And
it's got to be a real sense of pride, too.
Extraordinary, really extraordinary sense of pride.
And just let me ask you, he was ahead of his time, really, in terms of even thinking about the sort of African experience, because it's not just African American.
Yeah.
When 1925 is when
So 1925 is when, and that Joy knows as well, but that's when the New York Public Library bought his collection. And so by that time he had a collection of over 10,000 items. I think he wanted it to be accessible to the public. He wanted it to be in Harlem. And the New York Public Library stepped up and said, you know, we want to sort of take the collection on, preserve it, but also honor that it would be accessible to the public and remain in Harlem. And Joy, I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
It's gotten bigger and better.
And it's gotten bigger and
better. It's gotten bigger and better. And I think one of the things that we really want to emphasize with the Centennial is that the collection, the Schomburg Center, really is a response to community desire and community need. And so in 1925, when the Division of Negro Literature, History, and Prints begins, that's our precursor, if you will, Harlem had become this mecca of not just Black America, but really thinking about the Black world. So you had Southern migrants coming to Harlem, you had Caribbean migrants who had made their home there. So it really becomes this melting pot of Black culture. And because of that, the library at 135th Street became kind of this center. And all of the materials that were housed there were really being used and overused, if you will. And so the division starts as a way to protect those materials that are about Black people, because that's what the community wanted. Yeah. But you have to create a sense of this special collection where things can be viewed, but they can't be removed from the library, if you will.
Yeah, the idea. Talk to me about, look, how many pieces you said? 11 million?
I said 11 million.
So you can't tell me all 11 million.
I cannot tell you all 11 million.
But yeah, talk to me, both of you. I'd like to know, one, something that's particularly special to you, some things, but also some of the things that maybe in this exhibition that will be featured that people have no idea that they are living in the Schomburg in the center of Harlem.
Sure. Well, some of them they will. Yeah. So they will have seen the Aaron Douglas murals, which are in our general research and reference reading room. So we live with our objects around us, if you will. And I think folks know about James Baldwin, and they know about Maya Angelou and Malcolm X and so on and so forth.
You're dropping names.
I am dropping names because we also wanted this exhibition to be kind of, I say, a flex, ultimately, right? Yeah. This is where you get to see what this institution, the business of this institution for the last 100 years. And now all of these institutions are trying to catch up to the Schomburg, because there was such, there was a commitment to making sure that these materials were preserved. So it's not just that we have, you know, all of these literati and very famous people, but we also preserve the papers of organizations, fraternities, sororities, and really community-based institutions, so that folks will be able to understand their histories as well.
You're trying to tell that complete history of the African diaspora.
We're trying to provide people with the resources to tell those stories, because it's really complete. I mean, I think more of expansive in the sense that who knows what a historian may find when they're in the papers or when they're in the archives, and what they will bring to bear and bring to us in the public to help us understand who we are.
Yeah. And is there anything that you know, perhaps from your great-grandfather's original, you know, offerings?
Well, what we call the seed collection is like the original collection. So Joy already mentioned some of them, like the favorites. It's everyone's favorites, like the James Baldwin, Maya Angelou, Malcolm X. But what I really, for a long time, there's a book there by Juan Latino, which I always thought was the first book, as we know, written by a Black person, but I recently became aware that there is an earlier book by a person called Junius Africanus. He was a Black man in the Roman Empire.
Yes.
Is that, you're familiar with that? And so that this was, and he was a theologian, right?
Yes.
And so this is something that like I'm fascinated by, like the whole study of that, you know, actually Arturo Schomburg was able to have this book by Junius Africanus, and like the story that could be told. You know, Joy was just talking about what we could do from the seed collection with scholarship, like even of the scholars of today. But, you know, I'm just imagining the stories that could be told from that.
Yeah, I think you just really summed up what you were saying, that when folks get in there and start digging through all the things, you have the writers, researchers, they're going to really be able to, I guess, give life to these stories, because sometimes I think it'll be a starting point for some of the things that you discover.
Absolutely. So the library is always a place to kind of satiate your curiosity, answer the questions that you have. And the Schomburg Center has so many answers in our collections, in our catalogs, if you will. I love when you talk about kind of these very, very rare books that are in the collection, because I think those are kind of encapsulate what Arturo Schomburg was trying to do and trying to say, in that Black people have always been contributing to culture, no matter where they find themselves. You know, when his collection was purchased for $10,000, which is a handsome sum in the 1920s, he used that money to grow the collection and to go and locate materials in Spain, on the Iberian Peninsula, where there had been a long-standing tradition of people of African descent. So he's kind of like this detective and also bringing to people at a time when, you know, what Arturo's teacher told him was kind of a common thought, that there was no history. And through these collections, through these materials, he's disproving them. He calls them vindicating evidences. So these collections ultimately vindicate our name, show that we have been present, not only been present, but also contributing.
And before I let you guys go, I want you to touch on that, the Centennial Festival that is set for June 14th.
Yes. So every year we do a literary festival. We've been doing it now for 6 years, and this is the 7th. The Centennial Festival combines our annual literary festival, our Black Comic Book Festival, and a block party. So we're bringing both the books and the music and the fun, and that happens on June 14th. We're taking over 135th Street, so you'll be able to go to these different, we call them, well, they're tents, but also these activated spaces for young people, for adults, for all those who love to read and all those who love to engage in Black culture and Black literature. So we'll be inside, we'll be outside, we'll be reading, we'll be dancing
Free
as
book
well.
giveaways is my understanding, right?
Absolutely, free book giveaways, and you can also sign up for your library card. We have a commemorative library card for the Centennial, which has one of our great art pieces, Rivers by Houston Conwell, featured on it. So you can carry that in your pocket with you.
Piece of the Schomburg.
Absolutely.
What a legacy. I want to send folks to schomburg.org/100. They can find out all the information about the exhibition and about Arturo Schomburg and this beautiful gift. It is really a gift that he has given us and that is continued to give to the community.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Love talking about good news.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us on Here and Now. If you missed any portion of today's show, you can watch at abc7ny.com/hereandnow or listen to our podcast wherever you subscribe. If you'd like to comment or share your story, email us at hereandnow@wabc.com or follow us on Facebook and Instagram. I'm Sandra Bookman. Enjoy the rest of your day.